good to go, everybody?
All good. Thanks for
Excellent.
playing.
All right. I'm happy to dive on in here. Thanks, everybody, for joining us this evening. We are going to be sharing our pre-application technical assistance webinar with you this afternoon for the Family Childcare Network's opportunity. All right, so just to start off, we wanted to extend a quick thank you to our funding partner, MyLeap, and the 12 existing Family Childcare Network hubs. Their hard work has supported us in preparing this webinar. We can sort of share with you the best learnings and the opportunity as a whole. So up next, I'll talk about the agenda for today. So we are going to go through first just some general housekeeping and the learning objectives for the webinar. Next, we'll talk briefly about the Innovation Fund and the FCCN initiative, what it is, and the current focus and timeline for the application. Then we'll talk more in depth about the competitive funding opportunity, so the key dates that you'll want to know about, what funding is available, and the requirements of being a subrecipient of ECIC. And then next, we'll talk about the application and selection process, what you can expect if you're going to be submitting an application. And finally, we'll talk about the application assistance that will be available to you as an applicant. All right. And one thing we wanted to highlight with the Zoom webinars, if you would like captions, closed captioning, or translated captions, you are able to access those by clicking on the More option that's down at the bottom of the screen. That will pull up a bunch of different options. And in the captions setting, once you click into the captions, you're able to also choose if you would like to have translated captions available or change the size or color for easier readability. Okay, and then some other housekeeping. Today's webinar is scheduled to last up to 2 hours because we want to make sure that there's time to answer questions. So questions will be, if you have questions, please submit them through the Q&A function within the webinar, and we will make sure that we respond to those within our webinar time today. The webinar is being recorded and will be shared with everybody in attendance, including the slides. All participants will be muted throughout the entirety of the webinar, so please use the Q&A function, and we'll make sure within the Q&A function you're also able to view and upvote if you have, if you see similar questions to the ones that you would like to have answered. All right, and as to get things started, I'll introduce myself. I'm Sebastian Betzer. I am the program manager for the Family Childcare Networks initiative in the Childcare Innovation Fund. I'll hand it over to my colleagues.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Misty Conley Rogers. I'm Senior Project Manager at the Early Childhood Investment Corporation, and I'll pass it on to Andrea.
Thank you, Misty. Hi, everyone. Andrea Ayat here. I am the Program Grants Manager here at ECIC, and I'm looking forward to helping you all through this webinar, getting into all of our systems. So nice to see you all.
All right, so our learning objectives for this webinar are to summarize the purpose and goals of the Family Childcare Networks project, to determine your organizational eligibility for this the funding opportunity to operate a Family Childcare Network hub, to understand the application and the application review and selection process, how to utilize our online portal Flux to submit an application, and also to identify and choose the technical assistance opportunities that are a fit for your needs in applying. So to jump right in, the first thing to know is about eligibility. So who is eligible to apply for the Family Childcare Networks opportunity? Right off the top, I know that we saw some registrations come in for this webinar of home-based childcare providers or childcare providers in general. The important thing to know is that the funding opportunity will not award individual licensed childcare providers or businesses. However, a group of home-based childcare providers who are already meeting and have formed a family childcare network could seek a fiscal sponsor organization who would agree to be the applicant And then if selected, they would be the ones to be the subrecipient and to receive those funds and monitor that. But it would be, home-based providers can lead off the effort to apply for family childcare networks as long as they have that type of partnership. So the fiscal sponsor would be the organization that's accountable to ECIC's Child Care Innovation Fund for the programmatic and financial outcomes of this competitive funding opportunity, as defined and explained throughout this presentation. So if you are in this webinar today and you are a home-based provider, definitely think about whether you have already identified a fiscal sponsor that could be the applicant organization for you, or you may want to. We're glad that you're here. We're happy for you to listen in because this may also be of interest to you just in hearing about what this initiative is doing for home-based providers. So thank you. And then also we wanted to mention that in general, eligible applicants for this opportunity include nonprofit organizations. So those are your 501c3s or a 501c3 operating as that fiscal sponsor that we talked about.
All right, I'm going to review and center us in the Child Care Innovation Fund purpose and give some context to what we're doing here. So the Innovation Fund was founded in 2021 with a $3 million seed investment from the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. And thanks to that strategic investment from Kellogg, the Innovation Fund has been able to leverage millions in both private and public funds to advance childcare solutions. And we'll get into our priorities on the next slide. So you'll be able to see the things we focus on. But to do this successfully, the Innovation Fund has to collaborate with partners at multiple levels, the national level, state level, regional, and even community levels. And we do this to design and pilot and scale cross-system and cross-sector solutions that can help to expand access to high-quality, affordable childcare for Michigan's families. And all of those investments we make produce a lot of really rich learnings and data that are used to educate and advocate for scaling those promising solutions across the state. You can head over to our website that I linked in the chat if you're interested in learning more about the projects and initiatives we've funded thus far. We have plenty of written content on those things on the impact section of our website. So let's dive into our priorities. We have 5 priority areas on the Child Care Innovation Fund, and all of these areas were designed to benefit employers, working families, childcare business owners, and early educators themselves. And so in order to do that, the Innovation Fund works to advance childcare as an essential community infrastructure for economic growth and development, business productivity, school readiness, by creating that synergy between the economic and childcare sectors, which is that first bubble. We also work to improve the wages, benefits, and on-the-job supports and professional development that early educators deserve and need to help children learn. So that second bubble there. The third bubble, building childcare supply. We do that by supporting startup and expansion of childcare businesses in various ways. Also, we work collaboratively with employers on solutions to improve productivity and recruitment and retention of their working families. That goes for both childcare employers and employers in general. And lastly, we strengthen childcare business by increasing the economic viability and sustainability of childcare businesses as businesses. And the cool thing about all of our initiatives on the Innovation Fund is they all touch one or more of these bubbles. And I think FCCNs as an initiative is really unique because it does all of these things. In some way, the FCCN initiative touches every single one of these bubbles. And I love to think about that. It's very cool to think about. We're going to give some space now to answer any questions, though I don't think I have seen any pop up in the Q&A function since we've started, but I'm not seeing any nods from my colleagues.
Misty, we did get one question.
We did. Okay. Thank you.
I typed a response, but I'll also respond to it here. So Joanne asked, how does somebody find a home-based provider group, so a family childcare network? And so I wanted to make sure that everybody is aware of the resource that we have on our website where we provide the contact information for all of our funded family childcare network hubs. It shows the counties that they serve and a main point of contact. And so getting in contact with the local family childcare network or family childcare network that serves that county would be the great starting point. And then this specific webinar today is to talk about the 2 additional hubs that are going to be added in, and those serve Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb, and then the Northwest region, which has a lot of counties, but that's also listed on our website. So those don't have contact information yet, but we would be able to make a connection for you. If you have questions, you can email us. There's a link, there's a email address on that website, technical assistance at ecicforkids.org. All right. So, continuing along, although I do think we have, do we have any other questions or anything like that before we move on?
Looks like we have a hand raised. If we could have you type your question in the chat so everyone can kind of see and we can respond while talking, that would be awesome.
Yes, it also helps us develop our frequently asked questions document, which we're consistently adding to and is linked on our Innovation Fund webpage. And so it'll help us gather that data and make sure we're updating with the most relevant questions and answers for you all.
All right. And there will be, as Misty had mentioned, there will be many opportunities for us to dive into the Q&A. So we'll continue on and answer those questions as they come up. So the next thing to talk about is what is the scope of work for Family Childcare Networks? So what are Family Childcare Networks broadly? What is this funding opportunity? And the first thing to know is that Family Childcare Networks, the hubs, are organizations that are funded to host or to put forward networks of up to 25 home-based childcare providers in a network. And those networks have the responsibility of providing business and financial supports that promote solutions and sustainability for their network members, to identify and offer tools and training that increase the capacity of those home-based providers. So if they want to increase license capacity, but also if they want to increase their capacity to offer additional hours or all different kinds of capacity, the tools and training that support that, the network is able to step in and provide that kind of support, and also enhance quality practices. So an example of networks supporting quality practices is when a training takes place in the community or in a sort of with a resource center, and home-based providers are looking to apply that to their context. Family childcare networks are a great way for home-based providers to come together and identify how to apply those trainings in their home context. And then lastly, the last part of the scope of work for the Family Childcare Networks is to create business owner connections. And that's really the core of the Family Childcare Networks, is identifying all of the strengths that come out of those connections when home-based childcare providers meet together and collaborate together. It supports them in sharing effective practices, promoting their well-being, and identifying the barriers to home-based childcare that are impacting them in their community. And on the next slide, I will demonstrate, I'll talk a little bit more about and actually, can you hit the spacebar one more time, Misty? I think there we go. So this diagram is a really helpful diagram in terms of thinking about how this funding plays in. So the Family Childcare Networks funding funds a hub organization. That's that cog in the middle of this diagram. And so the network hub is the connective tissue that's joining together individual providers, both with each other, so like by forming them into a network, but also connecting them to broader system infrastructure that supports the health of home-based childcare in Michigan. And so what you see there are the arrows that come out from the network hub are what the hub offers to home-based providers. And those are resources that are related to supporting their quality, building up their business and sustainability, providing comprehensive services as a referral system, or building comprehensive services that don't exist. And then also focusing on provider well-being and the number of things that play into that. And this all works because the home-based childcare providers who make up that network and the children and family perspectives that they serve weigh in. We want to see network hubs creating feedback loops with those providers to create the system governance for the hub. So the hub makes its decisions on the basis of the challenges that local home-based providers and the children and families they serve are facing, and they basically work together to create the solutions to those challenges. And among all of that, we do know that there are significant challenges in Michigan with the home-based childcare sector. There's a lot facing it there are a lot of challenges facing it in terms of the profitability of those businesses. And so one of the things that's also happening is that the Network Hub plays an important role in helping the home-based childcare providers they serve to inform policymakers as far as the additional public policy and funding that can come from learning about the challenges that home-based providers are facing, and building additional tools and programs that are actually designed with home-based childcare provider voice and their perspectives directly at the core of that. On the screen right now is a list of our current FCCN hubs. So we list this, and as we had mentioned before, we also have, I'm going to put in the chat our website that has the contact information for each of these hubs. The reason we list these out is these will be the successful applicants' colleagues in this work, and there's a lot of learning that happens within our project across and between hubs. These are great folks to get in contact with or ask questions of as you are considering building out your application. And also our focus for the upcoming fiscal year. So what you would be joining in to is a lot of work that is built around the direction that we want our FCCNs to continue developing. Those areas are firstly to focus on strategic implementation of quality benchmarks. You'll hear us talk about quality benchmarks a lot. In the application itself, you will see that the project plan is linked to homegrown quality benchmarks. And Homegrown is a national organization that has put forward research-based, sort of evidence-based benchmarks of quality that determine what makes a professional group of providers really effective at serving the needs of each of its members. And so that is the basis on which we build the entirety of the project. And so your project plan will respond to the core elements of those quality benchmarks. Also in FY26, we are continuing to build feedback loops to empower provider voice. So as we mentioned before, in that diagram, you could see that home-based providers and the children and families they serve are a big part of weighing in on what the networks are able to do, what the networks are bringing forward. And part of that is an ongoing practice of building those feedback loops, both through data collection, but also through setting up networks in such a way that providers have a voice in the meetings. We are also in FY26 working on exploring using networks to provide shared services to home-based childcare. Shared services are really a way of helping network groups of home-based providers to identify and obtain resources and services at lower costs or in more effective ways through being a group. And that's something that we're beginning the exploration process this year of how that can potentially happen. And lastly, we are always in the process of continuously improving the technical assistance that we provide to the hub organizations, and that the hub organizations then offer to their network members to focus on enhancing business success.
Thanks, Seb. And I'll be talking about this initiative timeline for the fiscal year 2026. So the purpose of this slide is really to provide a higher level overview of the FCCN initiative for this fiscal year we're currently in from the subrecipient perspective. The hope for this slide was really that you could use it as a point of reference as you get more familiar with the request for proposal, the RFP document, and eventually start to build out your project plan and staffing plan and budget and respond to the questions in the application. So you'll see at the very top of the timeline, we're currently in that pre-award phase, doing some pre-application TA with you all as potential applicants. That'll continue through November and a bit into December. Since applications are due in December, we'll start that application review and selection process. After that's been fully seen through and selected awardees have been notified, the 9-month period of performance starts in January, end of January through end of September. And you'll see along that particular timeline, we've oriented you to some meetings that you would be in attendance of if you were selected, including both a new hub orientation meeting and some progress meetings that would happen at a bi-monthly interval. Of course, with this opportunity, all funds are required to be liquidated each year, which means September 30th of 2026. And then the next line down, the next timeline shows the technical assistance and collaborative learning events that would happen throughout the year. That includes individualized technical assistance, an in-person learning event, also monthly peer learning communities, and then responsive TA throughout is something that the Innovation Fund prides itself on, that it's individualized and tailored to meet subrecipient needs. And then lastly, subrecipient reporting, just again, another high-level overview of when reports would be due, so you can take that into consideration as you build out the required elements of your application. Moving again into some space for questions. I'm going to open it up. Andrea, if we might have any questions in the Q&A, could you help us read them off?
Yeah, we just had one additional question. Sebastian is on it. He jumped in and provided an answer already. It looked like someone was looking for more clarity on who can apply to lead the network.
Yeah, and I do just want to say out loud as well. So the applicant does need to be a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So if a family childcare business, if a home-based childcare business owner is interested in their creating a hub or identifying that there's not a hub in their area currently and they're working on or they would like for there to be one, or they would like to participate in contributing to that, the recommendation that I would give is to look for those organizations that you work with all the time in your community that you feel like support home-based childcare provider voice effectively, because they might be good nonprofits to consider this opportunity. And your support working together with them creates a much more the strongest applications that we've seen in the past are ones in which home-based providers are working together with the applicant organization to, right from the beginning, include their perspectives in the project plan and in the proposal. Those typically make stronger applications.
Thanks, Seb, for that clarity. I did see one additional question came through about, are the meetings mentioned all in person? No, most of the meetings mentioned, that's a great question. Thanks for asking it, Steve. Most of the meetings mentioned are virtual. Any meeting that is in person is noted as in person. Otherwise, all virtual. For example, the bi-monthly progress meetings that subrecipients are required to attend are virtual. They happen via Zoom. There is one in-person event that's being planned for July associated with this initiative. That is a peer learning community event. That is just one of the other monthly peer learning communities. Like I said, they occur also via Zoom and on a monthly basis. So most of what we do is virtual. However, when there is an in-person element, we'll definitely note that. So far, only one in-person event. Though we have been talking a lot about getting more out into the community, and Sebastian in the past has attended many hubs and networks meetings that they've hosted in their various regions. So that's always something we can do as well, as make our way to you. Anything to add to that, Seb, that I might have missed?
Just that, so that's the case on the ECIC side. So our work with the partner organizations is mostly virtual. However, the hub organizations do have a requirement that their meetings take place at least at a once a month cadence, and that has to have an in-person component. So it's not the case that everybody has to join in person every single month, but there does need to be a monthly in-person option for the network meeting.
Thanks for offering that. All right, moving on. Keep putting your questions in the Q&A. This is very helpful for us, and we'll be sure to add them to our FAQ document as well. So now that we've reviewed the initiative's timeline over the fiscal year, let's talk about this funding opportunity timeline very briefly. The application portal was opened as of yesterday morning in flux, and it will close at 5 p.m. on Monday, December 15th. 2025. That's a 30-day application window, which is standard for all of our competitive funding opportunities. Selected awardees would be notified of funding decisions, like I said, end of January 26th, and the 9-month period of performance would span then January 26th through end of September 2026. These are the very, very most important key timeline elements for this opportunity. All right, getting right into who is eligible geographically for this opportunity. Sebastian's discussed a lot about eligible organizations and how the Innovation Fund does not fund any individual childcare business owners or businesses. However, if you do find an organization as a fiscal sponsor and a group of businesses want to apply, or if you happen to be an organization that is eligible to apply, you'll want to know geographically, where is that happening? So for the purposes of this competitive funding opportunity, applicants proposing an FCCN hub will be required to apply to cover one of the following regions. The Northwest region, which will include one hub operating 3 networks. It will serve Antrim, Benzie, Charlevoix, Emmett, Grand Traverse, Kalkaska, Leelanau, Manistee, Missaukee, and Wexford counties, which you can see in, I've highlighted here in red, that northwest corner there. Or the Southeast region of the state, which will include one hub that's operating 2 networks that will serve Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties, which you can see also highlighted, outlined in red. Each hub will be, you'll see marked here or noted here, each hub will be responsible for offering FCCN membership to home-based childcare providers in all associated counties within their region. And you might be asking, what about the other regions of the state? Regions and counties that aren't included in this list here for this competitive funding opportunity are not eligible applicants for this particular opportunity, as there's already 1 or more FCCN hubs covering those regions. And you'll also see this reflected in the RFP. This information is all also included there about eligible geographic regions. Now we're going to talk about working in partnership. I'll hand it over to Sebastian.
Yep. Great. Thanks, Misty. So the next few slides talk a little bit more about what you can expect if you are to be successful, what we're looking for from the hub organization. So a Family Childcare Network hub continuously serves 25 home-based childcare providers per network. So the expectation is that the applicant markets the opportunity to join the FCCN within their service area. They maintain accurate membership records, and they continue to, if it takes time to, we know that it takes time to build up networks. So as it's taking that time to really get up to speed, you will continue to review that, and you'll continue to talk with us, ECIC, about how that's going, what challenges you're facing with that early setup and adoption, and you'll continue that process of always trying to build up to the network capacity. How do we support? We support by providing some marketing materials. You're, of course, welcome to create your own, but we also provide as much as we can as far as the reports that we put out can be utilized for this. Sometimes we have other opportunities for documents that are translated, things of that nature. We're happy to work together with you on that. We also provide a membership roster and clear guidance on what constitutes a member of an FCCN. So we'll work with you on maintaining those accurate membership records. The next important task for a FCCN hub is to support the collection and reporting of metrics related to childcare providers, children, and families. And so that involves collecting data on the project, include the project outcomes. So that's like looking at the things related to the health of the businesses that are in your networks, the services that are provided both to your network members and that make it to the children and families. So that's data on referrals, that's data on the technical assistance that you're providing as part of being the hub organization. And then you report on that data at regular intervals to ECIC. And ECIC, what do? We provide the data collection tools. We discuss the data. We oftentimes, our hub organizations support us in talking through which data collection tools are really getting at what we're hoping to be getting at, and which things might need to be updated to be more specific. And we really do value that partnership with our hub organizations. And then ultimately, ECIC provides the technical assistance on using the tools to make sure that quarterly we're getting those data collected, and that we're working together to identify what are the programmatic focus areas that each hub is going to be working on based on that. And the next task for an FCCN hub will be to effectively carry out all required activities as specified in the RFP. And so that really means in the RFP, what you'll see is that there's a project plan that goes by indicator of success. And what we would want to see is a budget that demonstrates the budget has in it enough funds for compensating providers for participating in their network meetings, for providing training and technical assistance to network members on that monthly basis, and participating in our FCCN peer learning community. And we facilitate that peer learning community. We develop and disseminate additional technical assistance resources for hubs as we're identifying like challenges of practice or learnings that are identified from one hub to another. We share that out and make sure that the hubs are working in partnership toward our best practices. And then ultimately, we offer consultation and coaching for FCCN hubs and also for network leaders. So the PLCs are broadly open to program staff or network leaders, whoever the hub deems it is most supportive to gain that additional content knowledge. We do invite those people to the peer learning community as well. And then also lastly, the hub is really responsible for complying with all state and federal requirements. And so again, that's really about that reporting component, utilizing the templates that we put together, and participating in our bi-monthly progress meetings. A lot of our reporting is done through progress meetings because there is a lot of diversity across the hubs and how they operate. It's really important for us to have those check-in points with decision makers at the organization to really get an understanding of what's going on beneath the numeric data. And we support FCCNs in all reporting, so we always have technical assistance available to complete that. And we also ensure that FCCNs meet federal guidelines for the use of funds with our compliance team, and also the technical assistance that we're able to provide through our questions and answers.
I'm going to jump in here. I can talk a little bit about the funds available and specifically the payment schedule for this application in this subaward period. So the funds available, our budget's up to $86,862 per network for the initial 9-month period of performance. So you saw on the map before that the different opportunities have different amounts of networks. And then all of the funding available for these are determined by the state's annual legislative appropriation to MyLeap. So we can't guarantee those totals in advance. We kind of learn those and disseminate those out on an annual basis for this project. The payment schedule for this, once we have a signed subrecipient agreement from you, payments are made by ECIC on a reimbursement basis, right? So you spend and then let us know, and then we process and approve and then pay on that. And then those are due on a monthly basis throughout the award period.
And similar to that, we also have the recurring progress meetings that I previously talked about. So for this subaward specifically, those progress meetings with subrecipients would begin March 2026 and then every other month thereafter. There's also narrative and metrics reporting required for this subaward, and that would be, again, in the sort of mid-year quarterly and kind of year end would be March, June, and September. So they are quarterly reports, but they provide us with a sense of where our new hubs that are joining us are going to be at the beginning, middle, and end of that rest of the sort of that 9-month time frame. That's important to think about there. and what is the reporting taking place on. So it's really important. Our big focus is to focus on demographic data. We really want to understand which home-based providers are participating, what are the children and families that are served, what are they looking for specifically, what services do they need from their home-based providers, and what services do they need from the community. We're looking at home-based childcare business sustainability indicators. So we ask people to share with us their enrollment numbers, any wait lists that they have going on, income from childcare, and more in that area. Technical assistance data is also requested, which involves the network staff logging and tracking the quantity and type of technical assistance that they provide to network members and how much of that is on site so that we can focus on making sure that these staffed networks are able to provide the network members with that additional service. We also look at summaries of what are the supports and services that have been provided around the state because they differ from area to area. So we keep an eye on what are those supports and services that are most effective for each specific network. And then also we track participation in quality supports like Great Start to Quality or other like folks who also pursue additional training, additional credit hours, and things of that nature. That's also tracked within our reporting metrics.
Yeah, so there's one question here from Steve that I was typing in the chat, but I will answer live. The question is this just for the 9-month funding period? Will this be rebid next fall? Which is an excellent question. And the answer to that is this application does cover that 9-month funding period. That's why you budget for that 9-month amount and the period of performance and all of the subsequent reporting that Sebastian and Misty talked about for this 9-month period. But this follows all of the other projects and subrecipients that we have at ECIC where we do contracting on an annual basis. So coming up once that contracting period ends, we will just ask for updated budgets based on the amounts that are allocated to all of the subrecipients. And sometimes updated materials depending on the project. So for FCCNs, it'd be an updated project plan for the following year, so we kind of know what's going on. And then there's other data that we might collect, but it isn't a formal application period where you have to bid, where you have to be selected and approved and rated. It's more just a recontracting process to continue on the next year, obviously based on performance and things like that. But hope that answers that. And I think that's the only question that we have in here. All right, so we can move on to preparing your application in Flux. We use a grants management software called Flux. We have our own site. You can find that in the RFP. That's at the link that Misty had in the chat for competitive funding opportunities. On that website, there's also a link, or in the RFP, there's also a handy document that can guide you to navigating Flux if it's your first time kind of getting in that software. But the way the process works, I mean, you can pull that document up side by side and just get registered, and then we will approve your registration on the back end, and then you will be able to get in, find the application, answer the questions, upload any pertinent materials, download templates that you need. All of that information is going to be found in there. The RFP does talk a lot about how to fill out your application and all of the necessary information that I'm sure you all have seen, and that guidance document will kind of help point you to literally where you should click and what you should do to get that filled out. And then that's how you apply. And we'll talk a little bit more about how that process works, and we'll talk through the questions and stuff like that. So the selection criteria for this award process, we select based on merit and quality as determined by points. And you'll see that all of our questions have a certain amount of points allocated to them. And we've provided that rubric that's in the RFP. The maximum application score is 33 points, and we'll kind of gauge those accordingly. But applications that score below 20 points won't be recommended for funding. And all of our awards are subject to approval by MyLeap. So we go through our application review process and selection process with external reviewers, and based on how everyone rates, we make those we provide our selections to MyLeap, and MyLeap has final approval before we move to contracting.
All right, so taking a look at what actually are the application questions and what are the rubrics for each of those, I'll dive in and describe what you'll be seeing and what you'll be selecting from. So initially, the first question is to just identify which hub you are applying to be. So the two options are either the Northwest region, which is, again, you would be applying to operate 3 networks, or Wayne Oakland Macomb hub, where you'd be applying to operate 2 networks. So you would just make that selection. There's no points for that question, just identifying which application you're going for. The second question asks you to identify whether you're applying to form a new network of home-based childcare providers, or if you have identified a pre-existing group or network of home-based childcare providers that you are then supporting as a hub organization. And so there's no points awarded for that. It is really genuinely just to support us understanding the rest of your application, whether we should be picturing you convening home-based providers and therefore have a longer period of recruitment to get things going, or whether you have an existing group of providers. It really helps us, again, picturing the rest of your application. Are you describing building something or something that's already operating that is going to take on a few additional responsibilities or ways of operating as a result of becoming a family childcare network hub? So that's question 2. There's also no points awarded. Each of those options is completely fine. The next one is to provide the number of FCCN participants and the length of time it's been in operation. So again, this is a reminder that if you've answered yes to the first one, then you would have an answer here, just describing, again, a little bit of the history of that organization or that group of providers that you are supporting with this application, or that is now applying. Then the fourth question, this is the first one that is points bearing. You'll upload a roster of Family Childcare Network participants. Now, you may be thinking, if I'm putting together a new Family Childcare Network hub, how would I have a roster already? You wouldn't, but there will be a roster template that it will be in with the application. And what we ask is that any home-based providers that you work with or that support you in putting together your initial ideas for the project plan, that you ask them to be recognized on that initial roster of your sort of first Family Childcare Network participants. And so that's what you would do if you had a new FCCN or a new network of providers. And if you had an existing network of providers, then those folks, you would fill out the roster with the folks who had already been in attendance.
I think we have a pretty relevant question to stop and answer.
Great.
So I'm going to let Andrea come off mute and talk about it.
Yeah, so the question is can it be both? So you have a network that is already existing and you're interested in building a new one.
And the answer is absolutely yes. You would just, so these questions in the Flux portal they allow you to enter things in, or you have the roster template. The roster template is going to be your tool for this. In the roster template, you have one column that will say which network are these network members associated with. And so you would put, this is the network that's already in existence, and you would detail all those people. And then for the new one, if other people had helped you with your application who are going to be in that new category, you would enter them in there. And again, it is doable that you begin to build out your application and your hub without consulting other home-based providers, but because we believe strongly that it builds a much stronger application the rest of the way, there are points associated with this. So we do, when it says includes a full roster of FCCN participants, what we're talking about by full is not 25 members, but we're talking about fully completed, that you have gotten the information from each of the network members or the future network members that had supported that application. Again, it's just demonstrating that you have those existing relationships with home-based providers that are building this strong application.
Yes, and so there's an additional question. In the Wayne County Southeast region, we would want to have two networks. Is that right? Yes, that would be required. As the applicant submitting the application to be the hub for the Wayne, Oakland, Macomb region of the state, it would be required that that hub support two networks. So you definitely would want to reflect that in your application responses.
And typically, as you're thinking about breaking up those networks, thinking about who those networks are going to serve, there have been two successful strategies that we've seen with our existing hubs. You can choose to break up networks by geography. So you could say certain counties can sort of exist together, and that's how we'll determine what this network will be. Or you can identify within a broad geography that you're going to have home-based provider types that make sense to serve in different networks. So for example, license exempt providers are home-based providers and therefore are eligible to participate in family childcare networks. And so you might determine that you have a group of license exempt providers that are going to focus on specific home-based childcare challenges facing them. And then you could also break up and have a network that was very specifically about the licensed, the type of home-based childcare provider. That could also form how you decided to put together your networks. And so really it is up to you. You are the one proposing the distinction between your networks that makes the most sense. Okay, the next section is for you to describe your prior experience working with home-based childcare providers. So that would include any current activities and a detailing of the processes that you use to include home-based providers as partners in decision-making, operations, and accountability. And you can see here that for a highly recommended for funding score, you would describe the intentional focus on home-based childcare as a distinct, essential, and valued setting for children and families, inclusive of supporting home-based childcare. Next up, you would also describe how your hub will ensure fair access and opportunity for all home-based childcare business owners and providers, regardless of background and across communities. And so that's really identifying, again, how you will determine fair access and support home-based providers being able to attend network meetings, and also focus on how you will focus on the specific needs that the community you're serving have. And so this is a great place to describe how you are going to set up those initial feedback loops to hear from home-based providers initially in what you're planning to then create a project around. The next section here, the next question 7, is to describe how home-based childcare business owners and providers are involved in the hub's decision-making. So for each network, you would want to talk about whether you are going to create a provider leadership group, whether you'll utilize a different type of feedback loop. So some of our hubs do consistent surveying. Some have leadership groups that weigh in with the support program staff and ensure that program staff are continuing to develop programming that is based on and rooted in the needs that the home-based childcare business owners that are in their network are raising. And so here's where you would describe that feedback loop. And then question 8, you would upload the project plan using the required template. So there will be a template available to you that will have all of the different indicators and things that we're looking for in the project. And you would identify who was carrying out each of those and the sort of time frame that those things would be established. Then there's also, we then ask for you to describe your staffing strategy. So this is, again, thinking about, these are staffed networks. So we would want to know who are you going to hire for this role, who will be the program staff that provides the technical assistance and on-site support to home-based providers. And in this question, we would like to know how you recruit, hire, orient, train, mentor that person, and make sure that they have an understanding and respect for home-based childcare and represent the communities where home-based childcare providers live and work. So really, we are looking for that grounding in understanding of home-based childcare as a distinct setting that has distinct challenges. And so lived experience is fantastic. We also would love to see folks, let's say they have not worked with or as a home-based childcare provider, looking for those opportunities for professional development that can support them in gaining that understanding would be something that we would like to see in this question. And then we also have a staffing plan template. The staffing plan template is helpful because it goes through each of the required tasks. So each of the things that are required functions of the network. And we ask you to include in that template the role, if you don't have somebody hired for it yet, the role description for each of those responsibilities that they would be in charge of. So that may be, for example, you may have your like director level people overseeing certain responsibilities, the program staff taking on the day-to-day work of something. And then you may also optionally choose to have network member leaders if they are stepping up to support one aspect. They are requirement is that network members are not the staff of the program, but they are allowed to take on additional leadership roles and support. But we would, in the staffing plan, want to see that they are closely connected with the actual program staff person. So that's really what we're looking for, is that there's a clear staffing plan for each of the responsibilities that are carried out by somebody who is hired by the hub.
And I would just note that in Flux, there is an example completed staffing plan template that is linked for your reference.
Thanks, Misty.
And then the last part of the application is the budget and the risk assessment. So this process doesn't go through external reviewers and a rubric system like the other questions in the application. This one goes through our internal program compliance team, the program team, and finance. And so there are sections in the application devoted to the budget and the risk assessment. There will be a template for you to download and use. There is an instruction document to download that you can go through, and it walks you through kind of step by step how to best complete your budget, as well as your budget narrative. And there's also an example budget narrative and an example budget located within the templates themselves. I can say a little bit more about those. So budgets need to reflect the direct costs of implementing the scope of work. So all costs must be allowable, reasonable, and adhere to federally uniform guidance because these are federal funds. We have to adhere to those. So any shared costs must be a direct benefit to the project implementation, either there or captured under indirect. We do allow indirect on this project. For the budgets, just make sure that they are all complete. There's an orange summary tab. There's a bunch of other things in there that you'll see in the instructions and the example. So just make sure you have those pulled up side by side and you can really walk through and make sure that it's fully completed. We really are looking for as much detail as possible as you can put in there and how you arrived at your budget numbers. That can either be in the budget itself or within the budget narrative. That's the document that accompanies the budget. So in there, for example, the number of FTEs and, the percentage on the project, similar prior expenses, different things like that. We have a few helpful tips, and a lot of those are going to be found within the narrative instructions themselves. But basically, make sure you're listing all of the roles. Make sure that your travel costs are in alignment with your travel policy, either that or defer to the Michigan Department of Technology Management and Budget for allowable costs. We're looking for details on the nature of the travel, the rates and things like that, as well as for contractors. We are looking for names. If you don't have those yet, we'd like a group description of those, but we don't want contractors grouped together. Within FCCN budgets, we also have something called participant support costs. And these are defined as direct costs that support participants, which can be parent leaders, childcare providers, and FCCNs. It would be the providers and their involvement in, this project. So stipends, allowances, travel allowances, registration fees, dependent care for participation, things like that are considered participant support costs. And there's a special section for those. And those are not eligible for indirect, which is why we categorize them separately. And we'll ask you in the application, in the budget, and in the risk assessment what de minimis rate you're using for your indirect rate. The current default rate is 15%, but if you have an already pre-negotiated rate, you can put that in there as well. Let's see, there's the risk assessments. There is a link to the risk assessment questionnaire that's housed outside of Flux. And if your organization has already submitted a risk assessment to us within the last calendar year, reach out to us and let us know, and we can pull that information over for you so you don't have to complete it again unless there's something substantial that's changed. I think that's it on budgets and risk assessments, but feel free to ask questions. And then I am also going to pop in the chat the email address that you can reach out with questions regarding your budget and budget narrative or any potential issues that you have with Flux.
I already put it in the chat.
Oh, good. Thank
We
you,
can
Miss.
see it. I think, yep, okay. So
Great.
you're all set.
Thank you, Misty.
Of course, opening up for questions.
I don't see any, but if they pop up, we'll answer them as they come.
Sounds good.
So we can move on to talk a little bit about our application review and selection process. So we have a 4-step review process. Step 1 is when your application comes in, we review it internally for minimum qualifications, which basically means, did you answer all the questions? Did you attach all the relevant documents? Is all the information that we need there? Then we move you to step 2. These we recruit an application review and selection committee that handles these applications. So each application is reviewed and scored individually by this committee, and then we bring them together to reach consensus regarding the scores of these based on the rubrics. And then when we compile that information, we put that together and recommend that to MyLeap, which is so step 2, step 3. And then our final step is MyLeap reviews and approves our final list of recommended subrecipients, and then we're able to move and finalize contracting. So we find it critical to center fairness and transparency in our reviews. So all of our reviewers sign conflict of interest forms prior to reviewing applications. We also, prior to that, provide an internal training to all reviewers to make sure that we are centering fairness and transparency in our reviews. We make sure that multiple reviewers are scoring the same application. So we're kind of collating the all of the different scores together for one application and making sure we're coming to a consensus on those scores. And then another way that we center fairness and transparency is by publishing the rubric that we have our reviewers use, as well as for applicants to see, so they can truly understand what a strong response is and can understand what their score potentially could be when they submit. And if you need any application assistance, these are the places that you can go, right? So we have all of these documents and materials available to you on our website, the Child Care Innovation Fund webpage that Misty put in the chat earlier. The RFP is there. The FAQ is there. Within the RFP, we have the Flux how-to document to help guide you that I spoke to earlier. We also have example templates in Flux for things that you need to submit. We're going to put this webinar and slides on the Child Care Innovation Fund website. And we also have all of the lovely email addresses that Misty provided in the chat and here for you to reach out to us should you need any support. We will be offering office hours. Appointments are available, as you can see here, the 19th through the 12th to support this application period. We're looking for those to be requested through email at the technical assistance email inbox that we have.
Allowing a bit more time to answer any remaining questions. And I know that there is a question that came through that Sebastian is typing an answer to, probably worth talking about a bit.
Yeah, I definitely will as well. So I'm just going to put my hit send on my answer. Okay. So the question that came through was asking about that $86,862 amount, which is the per network allocation for this funding opportunity. And the question was specifically asking, like, what can that be put towards? And so, or like, what is that being applied to? So the important thing to think about is that that's for the 9-month period of performance for each network. And the funding amount is designed to support all of the costs for setting up and operating a home-based childcare, or that number of home-based childcare networks. So the 86,000 number is the amount that we've deemed is appropriate for each network to be applied to each network. And what that means is that the costs that go into that are literally everything that it takes to run this program to fidelity. So that's going to be the program staff salaries are an essential component of that. Also, the contractors that support the training that you're sourcing for the networks, meeting supplies, supports within we can talk about which supports that you might be planning to provide for network members based upon the needs that are identified. There are funds available again for supporting directly those business needs that the network members are identifying. And then within that, there's also like the operating costs as well that Andrea might be able to speak to a little bit about the essentially the indirect costs also get calculated in with that amount to determine what amount the organization needs to also spend to operate this contract. So really it's very broad, but that amount, that per network amount is really like what you would be applying everything that you're going to be like proposing within the project plan. You'd be applying that to that amount. I am very happy to support that process of thinking through. I think it's coming up on a future slide, talking about how you can get in contact with us to discuss those ideas that you might be having for building those budgets and building those project plans. I would be happy to give more detail, a more detailed answer in that setting.
Yes, and I would just mention that Terry was the one who asked this question. Terry also asked a question about the Wayne County Southeast region. So for that 3-county region, you would be applying for 2 networks, and that equates to just over $173,000 for both to run both of those networks. Just adding that on.
And it is that would be the maximum, yes.
Yeah. Up to that much. Yeah, exactly. All right. I'm not seeing any other incoming questions, but feel free to keep popping them in here. I just wanted to run through this is our very last slide. We really appreciate you all attending this webinar today. And like Sebastian's already mentioned, there are other opportunities for support should you need them. We do, as Andrea so eloquently discussed, we offer office hours. They are virtual appointments that you can request at the technical assistance at ECIC for Kids email. You would just send us an email. You would say what you would like to meet about, kind of the why for meeting. Those are 15-minute sessions. If you might need more time than that and you're like, oh, I really could use a bit more time, we can always do like 2 back-to-back sessions and give you a 30-minute window if necessary. But that's something that Sebastian and other ECIC Innovation Fund team members would come to a conclusion on, and just to be sure we're giving everyone, a fair access to these office hours. So please do reach out if you need those things. In response, we will send you a scheduling link and you will be able to select a time that works best for you. and we'll be notified and we'll meet via Zoom to do that. Otherwise, please do access our website to find all the supportive materials that Andrea mentioned. And know that in Flux, there are other supportive materials in the application itself. So always reach out to us with any questions, and we look forward to offering our support. Thank you again for attending.